Now, this might surprise some of you a little bit, but I've got South Africa as my dark horses for this World Cup. In fact, they are my number 4 seed. So, to that extent, not really dark horses, but I say so because not a lot of people are talking about South Africa in the context of this World Cup. And there's a reason for that. Some of you could well point out that since the last World Cup, they've won 11 and lost 19. But coming into this tournament, I think there's a lot of things going for them, in spite of the fact that they are a very unique multiracial society, and that can sometimes affect the selection of their teams. But as I said, I think they've got a lot going for them. For a start, I think they've made some very good decisions in recent times. A lot of you who watch these blogs are aware of my admiration for Temba Bavuma appointing him as captain, recalling Simon Harmer and bringing him to India for the test matches, having a word with Quinton de Kock, getting him back. I think that could be a big factor for them at this World Cup. Now, if only they could have found some way to get Heinrich Klaassen back in. And can you imagine then 4, 5, 6 of Stubbs, Brevis, and Klaassen would put fear in every opposition camp. But that is not to be. So you've got to go with what you have. And let's see what we have with this South African side. First look, not a lot of power, but increasingly a lot of confidence, because I think that SA20 tournament is giving a lot of their players exposure to coaches from a different background, a lot of high pressure cricket because the regional loyalties are very strong. And I think the players are emerging tougher as a result, and maybe a little bit more self-belief. That is going to be tested. When this T20 World Cup is over, from my point of view, that'll be the one big factor. Do South Africa have the self-belief in them? They'll have the desire, but do they have that self-belief in them? Let's go position by position. Quinton de Kock, I think, is one of the most special players in international cricket. And I think he realized that being away from the national team is very, very difficult, especially because you're making your own arrangements of physios, not getting quite the same amount of training. And somewhere, if you're a competitor, the fire burns in you. So I'm delighted for South African fans that Quinton de Kock has come back, just as much at the fact that Aiden Markram over the last year and a half, 2 years, has really discovered himself, found himself again, and is showing us why so many people around the world, when he first came up, thought they were seeing the arrival of a very special player. He's getting his strike rates up as well. Quinton de Kock and Aiden Markram is a very good opening combination. They could actually tweak that around if they wanted to have Markram at 3 and get the underrated Ryan Rickleton to open. He had a good IPL last year. He can just take off. In fact, if Quinton de Kock takes off, Ryan Rickleton will get the time. So I think de Kock, Rickleton, and Markram in that top 3 is a very good combination that sets it up for Brevis and Stubbs. Dearpal Brevis, Baby AB. Everyone said, wow, he's going to be a special player. And he buckled under that burden. But in the last year or so, we saw him break out in the IPL, magnificent century in the final of the SA20, playing a high-pressure game, backing himself across every situation to play his normal aggressive game, and now, finally, realizing the potential that made everybody say, baby AB. So, number 4, number 5, maybe between him and Stubbs, depending on the situation, but almost certainly Brevis and Stubbs. Now, you'll realize I've mentioned Rickleton and Stubbs. They were not in the original 15. There was Tony de Zorzi and Donovan Ferreira. South Africa really liked the idea of playing Ferreira at 6, bowling a little bit. He's a fearsome finisher, occasionally keeps wickets. He's a wonderful fielder, but that is not to be. But as a result, with the return of Rickleton and Stubbs, I just think it gives them very powerful batting options in the top 5. There's just one issue with number 6. And you might wonder, given that they have the extraordinary David Miller available there. But a little beset with injuries, maybe coming to the end of his career. Miller in form just completes this batting lineup. They like young Jason Smith. They picked him ahead of a lot of other players. So they'll find somebody in there at number 6. Because then 7 and 8 is a wonderful core for South Africa. I talked about making good decisions. One of their better decisions is getting George Linder back. I'd look at his numbers in franchise cricket and say, he comes in at 6-7, and so often there's a 40 of 22 balls. There's a 30 of 16 balls there. Tall, hits the deck, perfect kind of spinner for subcontinent conditions. And then marry him with Marco Jansen, who's a fearsome hitter, batting at 7 or 8, maybe even 7 with Linda at 8. Gets that tall left arm line going early on. Sometimes his economy rate can go very high because sometimes it gives you the impression he's dozed off. And I'm only taking the liberty of saying that because I think he's a very, very good cricketer. So Jansen and Linda, and then that leaves them, depending on the conditions, because they have Markram's off spin, to either play 3 quicks with different roles to play. And I think those 3 could well be Rabada, Ngidi, and Nokia. Rabada at the top, Ngidi a little bit at the top, but wonderful at the back end with his change of pace. And if he is going right, Heinrich Nokia is one of the best middle overs bowlers in the game. If he is going right, when he goes at the death, he can go for a lot of runs. But fast, boom, up in the body, he's a very, very good middle overs bowler. And I think they will choose between Nokia and Maharaj for that last spot, depending on the bowling conditions. So that is where the South African team is. As I said, not a lot of power up front, but if Quinton de Kock can get going, Markram can get going. Recently, they chased down 220 against the West Indies for fun with 2.5 overs left. Markram made an 80 in no time. Quinton de Kock's recently made a big 100. So they could provide the power if they're going. I think Markram is a very good leader too. But as I said, when it comes to that last day, if they are in that final, I think it'll come down to their self-belief.
So thank you for watching and do subscribe to this channel.